The most responsible person in your family was never actually a child. They were the parent's second parent, before they even lost their baby teeth. By the end of this video, you'll know why the exhaustion you carry today started decades before you ever had a job. But the real cause isn't what you think. Most people scroll past this without recognizing themselves. If you stay to the end, you will. If you were the responsible child growing up, by the end you'll understand exactly why you're paying for it now, and the 3 signs it's still running your life. Responsible child, now adult. Picture a child who, before the age of 10, already knew how to calm a crying sibling, translate a parent's mood, or keep the peace at the dinner table. Psychologists call this parentification, when a child takes on adult emotional or practical responsibilities inside the family. Parentification. It sounds clinical, but it feels simple. You were the one who noticed things first, the one who fixed things before anyone asked. Research on family systems shows this role rarely gets assigned out loud. No one sits you down and says you're in charge now. It just becomes your job quietly, the same way gravity becomes normal. A child with a checklist instead of a childhood. And here's the question worth sitting with. If nobody ever told you the job was optional, how would you have known to say no? Here's where it gets sneaky, because this role didn't feel like a burden, it felt like praise. Every time you handled something a child shouldn't have to handle, you got rewarded for it. So mature, such a good helper. I don't know what I'd do without you. Psychologist B.F. Skinner would call this intermittent reinforcement, praise strong enough to make the behavior stick for life. Being needed became confused with being loved. And that confusion doesn't stay in childhood. It follows you into friendships, into relationships, into every job where you say yes before you've even checked if you have the energy. The good kid trap is simple. The more reliable you became, the less anyone checked if you were okay. So who was checking on you? And this next part explains why you can read a room before you can read a menu. In many households, the eldest or most capable child doesn't just manage chores, they manage moods. You learn to scan a parent's face the second you walked in the door. Tense jaw, tired sigh, slammed cabinet. You read it instantly, then adjusted yourself to make it smaller. You became the household's emotional thermostat. Therapists call this emotional caretaking, and it trains a nervous system to stay on alert, always scanning for what someone else needs before asking what you need. Now that you're seeing this pattern for what it actually is, hit like and subscribe to keep exploring the psychology of the roles we never chose. There's a lot more of this pattern still to uncover. Because managing everyone else's emotional weather doesn't end when you move out, it just changes address. Now forget the childhood house for a second, because this contract followed you straight into your adult address. Somewhere along the way, an unspoken agreement got signed. You would be the capable one, and in exchange, you'd be needed. Nobody read you the terms, there was no signature, but the contract still governs how you live. You remember the small emotional debts other people forget they owe. Psychologists studying family roles call this the parentified adult, someone who never stopped performing the job they were handed as a kid. The invisible contract has one brutal clause hidden in the fine print. Rest was never included, and that clause is exactly why relaxing feels less like relief and more like danger. This is the part almost nobody talks about, because it isn't sadness, it's guilt. Try right now to imagine doing absolutely nothing for an entire afternoon. No fixing, no checking your phone for who needs you, no mental to-do list running in the background. Uncomfortable, right? For someone who grew up responsible, stillness doesn't feel peaceful. It feels like negligence, as if something bad will happen the moment you stop paying attention. Rest doesn't feel like relief, it feels like risk. 1, you apologize for resting. 2, you over-explain simple decisions. 3, you feel guilty saying no. Sound familiar? These aren't personality quirks. They're the fingerprints of a job that started far too early, and the next part shows exactly what that job costs you as an adult. What I'm about to tell you sounds impossible, but it's been documented in trauma research for decades. Chronic childhood responsibility doesn't just shape habits, it shapes the nervous system itself. Kids who had to stay alert to other people's needs often develop what researchers call hypervigilance, a baseline state of scanning for problems before they happen. As Carl Jung once put it, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. That's exactly what's happening here. The alertness that protected a household now shows up as anxiety. At work, overpreparedness in relationships, and inability to switch off. You call it being on top of things. Your body calls it a threat response that never got the memo the emergency ended years ago. And here's where the story takes a darker turn than most people expect. At some point, helping stops being generous and starts being a hiding place. If you're always the one solving everyone else's problems, nobody ever asks what's going on with you, including you. Winnicott, the pediatrician turned psychoanalyst, wrote something that lands hard here. It is a joy to be hidden, but disaster not to be found. Being endlessly useful is the safest disguise a person can wear. Because as long as you're managing everyone else's crisis, no one has to witness yours. And the next fact makes this one look almost gentle. Because this pattern doesn't just drain you quietly, it sends you a bill, and eventually it comes due in full. Keep watching, because this next one explains why competence can quietly become a cage. The more praised you were for being responsible, the more your identity fused with performance. You stopped being a person who happens to be capable and became someone who exists to be useful. Psychologists call this conditional self-worth, value that depends entirely on output. Miss a deadline, cancel a plan, ask for help, and the old shame shows up instantly. This is why so many high-functioning adults feel empty even while succeeding. The praise you got as a child taught you that love was earned, never given, and earned love has one exhausting requirement: you can never stop earning it. This is the part I almost didn't include, because it's the one that finally explains everything. Here's the real cause behind that exhaustion you've been carrying, the one this whole video has been building toward. It isn't laziness, it isn't weakness, it isn't even stress from your actual adult life. You were given a job before you were given a childhood. And burnout for someone like you isn't a sudden collapse. It's a bill finally arriving for years of unpaid emotional labor nobody ever acknowledged as labor. The body keeps score even when the family never did. Do you think this makes you strong for surviving it, or does it make the whole system that required it from you insane? Comment strong or insane. And if this is landing anywhere close to home, send it right now to the person who was always the responsible one in their family too. They need to hear this exactly as much as you did. So here's where all of this actually lands. Recognizing this pattern doesn't mean blaming the family that shaped it. Most of them were doing the best they could with the tools they had, but recognition is the first place power exists. You can help without disappearing, and rest without calling it failure. The job you never applied for doesn't have to be the job you keep working forever. Being the responsible one was never proof of your worth. It was just the role you were handed first. You didn't choose to become the responsible one, but you can choose what happens next. The exhaustion you feel isn't a character flaw. It's the last invoice from a childhood job you never signed up for, and the moment you see that clearly, it starts losing its grip forever. If you made it this far, comment role reversed if this described your childhood. Welcome to the Psyche Project.